Hello everyone, welcome to East-West Horizon. Pelosi's trip to Taiwan and its consequence is the hottest issue in Asia and in the world now. The modern history has been willfully changed by her. The US diplomacy is in turmoil and has suffered several setbacks just because of her. American history will definitely print with Pelosi's stroke. Not a bright one, but a stain that can be called a failure. She hoped to get her name on the history book. Yes, she achieved it. But it is a notorious one for the United States. And it is a turning point that turns a crisis into the opportunity for China and Asia. Today, let's take a look at Pelosi's trip. Pelosi detoured airways on August 2nd and arrived in Taiwan at night. She left for South Korea on August 3rd in the evening. The most important substantial change is that, in response to her visit, China announced that it would start live fire military drill around Taiwan Island from August 4th and set up 6 targeting areas. In a sense, the military forces, ammunition, and drones have passed through the central line of Taiwan Strait, crossed the airspace of Taiwan Island, controlled territorial waters near Taiwan, and actually controlled the once ambiguous area of the East China Sea, establishing the invisible coastal force control area. At the same time, it has shown China's advanced military power and a strong will to safeguard national sovereignty and territorial integrity. The key strategic step is achieved simply by Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, which used to require countless diplomatic efforts by China. According to Art of War, this is such a perfect plot and plan used by China, which turning a crisis into the opportunity. This is the first failure of American diplomacy regarding Pelosi's trip to Taiwan. Next, the president of South Korea deliberately avoided meeting Pelosi with an embarrassing excuse. It was not only an impolite treatment for Pelosi, but also a diplomatic humiliation to the US. Critics believe that it is a revenge he took for being ignored at G7 meeting not too long ago. Apparently, this is the second failure of US diplomacy. Third, National Security spokesperson John Kirby confirmed a long-planned Minuteman III ICBM test scheduled for this week has been rescheduled for the near future to avoid escalating tensions. The U.S. Department of Defense has begun to be cautious and to avoid escalate the U.S.-China confrontation for the first time. It is the third biggest failure of the U.S. diplomacy, and it is a rare sign of the U.S. military and diplomatic retreat. On the other hand, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said on Friday that he would cancel or suspend dialogue with the United States on issues such as climate change, military relations, and anti-drug efforts. Beijing also announced sanctions on Pelosi and her immediate family in response to what is called a malicious and provocative insistence on visiting Taiwan. China has imposed sanctions on former U.S. officials with increasing frequency since 2020, often in response to criticism of human rights issues. But Pelosi, a California Democrat, is one of the most senior U.S. politicians to be personally condemned by Beijing. Critics believe that Pelosi's willfulness is also the result of trying to divert her family from stock speculation. Therefore, sanctioning her immediate family is the right punishment. This is the fourth biggest failure of U.S. diplomacy in foreign affairs and international affairs. It turns out that without China, many American problems may not be solved. In addition to diplomacy, the internal conflict of the U.S. government branches has also been revealed this time. A very weak president and a very divided Democratic Party are obviously disclosed to the world. Almost all senior members of Biden's national security team have privately expressed deep reservations and concerns about the trip and its timing. A White House official said on condition of anonymity. Senior administration officials outlined the possible consequence of Pelosi's Taiwan trip in her office, and General Mark Milley, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, briefed Pelosi in person. The official said, "It is the first time that White House has acted in such a split personality on the world stage. Therefore, it creates the fifth biggest failure of American diplomacy." But losing credibility towards outsiders and solidarity towards insiders is not a big issue. The most important issue will be pushing China towards Russia under current circumstances. At the beginning stage of Ukraine crisis, China did not want to take a stand. But now, China was pushed directly to Russia by Pelosi's visit to Taiwan. It gave the most undeniable reason in the world for the sake of sovereignty and national integrity, as well as the United States' departure from its own commitments. The US went back on its words, saying one thing and doing another. So China had to make up its mind to respond. Therefore, holding the historical record of peace in the past 40 years, holding the concept of common prosperity of the Belt and Road Initiative, and holding strong economic and military strength, the two sides that were still vague in early 2022 has now been clearly divided. Russia, Iran, Serbia, ASEAN countries, and even the United Nations have clearly reiterated their support for the One China principle, which is the People's Republic of China. Russia, Iran, and Syria issued a statement on Tuesday, joining other Chinese allies in condemning the U.S. delegation's visit to Taiwan. Pushing more helpers to Russia is the sixth biggest failure of American diplomacy. Well, today, by counting the failure of American diplomacy, I hope that the U.S. politicians can open up their minds and achieve mutual appreciation between the East and the West. Thank you for being with us. Please like, forward, and comment. I will see you on the next show.